Am I Racist star Matt Walsh and director Justin Folk on getting exhibitors to take the chance on the controversial documentary and whether or not they're trolling Hollywood. There are right-wing comedians, there are right-wing actors, there are right-wing documentarians, a lot of whom I would not label as extremists. They're not hosting rallies where they're talking for the eradication of transgenderism.
Would like to know what I'm angling for. Up until this moment, I didn't think I was necessarily angling for anything. There are things that I want, there are things that I'm working towards, things I'm trying to achieve, but I'm pretty open about all those things. In fact, I don't shut up about them. So angling, though, has a more secretive, sinister sound. It has the sound of plotting and scheming. I've never really done any scheming, or at least I didn't think that I had. That's why I was so fascinated to read this article. And so let's do that now. This is from the Nashville Scene. It's from a Nashville Scene writer who goes by the name Betsy Phillips. And here's what it says, quote, I was watching conservative commentator Matt Walsh make his little speech outside the Supreme Court after arguments in U.S. versus Scrimeti about how we are going to continue to fight against transgender people. As the old joke goes, I was like, who is this we? By the way, how is that an old joke? That's just a phrase. Sometimes it's used in a joking way, I guess, but I wouldn't call it an old joke. Does this person not understand what the word joke means? Probably not, but let's not get hung up on semantics.
Again, he's so hard to listen to. It's one of the reasons he's like as extreme as he is. But I've said before, he's a guy, it's really weird that there is no information about Matt Walsh's life prior to him suddenly appearing at a college radio station. You would think someone who had risen to the levels he has, you'd see anything, but the internet is completely devoid of where Matt Walsh came from. His early life, what got him into wanting to be in broadcasting. He just suddenly appears in a shock jock situation at a college radio station where he is committing really, really strange, extreme kink acts upon one of their temps, where they're getting him to lick the inside of a dumpster beside to use condom. He is electrocuting his ass multiple times, stuff like that. Again, just boys being boys, shock jock style stuff. Oh, and of course the footage of him basically judging diaper wrestling between a neo-Nazi and another adult, grown men in diapers, one who has a swastika tattoo, and he's filming the whole thing. So weird that we don't really know a ton of where Matt Walsh comes from. That's strange. But it's really irresponsible what is happening right now in the media, where mainstream media outlets, I saw this in Deadspin the other day, are starting to treat him like a non-extremist figure. They're starting to treat him like a controversial conservative filmmaker, the right-wing Borat. You know, he's not an extremist who's collaborated with libs of TikTok, who's gotten bomb threats, death threats, called into children's hospitals, towards nurses, towards doctors, gotten bomb threats and death threats called in towards schools, towards teachers, principals, students, that kind of stuff. He's not someone who works every single day to make, children's lives more frightening. He's not someone who has sold diaper dolls of himself to children, marketed to kids. He's not that kind of extremist. He's not someone who has a long history of making very, very pedophilic statements towards the ideal impregnation age, being 16-year-old girls, stuff like that. Instead, he's just a filmmaker who's, yes, controversial, I'll grant you, but a controversial filmmaker. And as a controversial filmmaker, well, he's been looking into what he sees as the race industrial complex, the racism industrial complex of the United States. He doesn't believe that systemic racism is real. He thinks everyone has equal opportunity in America. If you want and you work hard, you play by the rules, you don't get into drug dealing and violent criminal gangs and all that kind of stuff, well, then you can live the American dream. Everyone has the same opportunities. Everyone has the same chances. There's no such thing as systemic racism. And he made an entire documentary, whatever you want to call it, but he made an entire film about it. And now that film is starting to get mainstream attention. And I think that these people, they are dangerous collaborators. Variety. Am I Racist star Matt Walsh and director Justin Folk on getting exhibitors to take the chance on the controversial documentary and whether or not they're trolling Hollywood. Look how this is fucking framed. Not this guy is a radical extremist. Like, there are right-wing comedians, there are right-wing actors, there are right-wing documentarians, a lot of whom I would not label as extremists. They're not hosting rallies where they're talking for the eradication of transgenderism. He was doing that recently outside of the Supreme Court. He was giving a speech where he was talking about how he will not rest until trans ideology is completely exterminated from the face of the earth. His words. He is extreme. This man has collaborated with libs of TikTok to enact stochastic terrorism upon children. That's the angle you should be looking at this from. Or even if you want to do, like, if you're looking to explore this topic, if it's the first time you've ever done this, like, I've got a video for everyone to watch because I want people to suddenly have, I don't know, a jumping off point. Because apparently no one knows how to use Google anymore. And I'll grant you, Google sucks, all right? AI has made the whole thing kind of rubbish. But there's other search engines. DuckDuckGo. You can go on the internet. You're supposed to be journalists. This is the thing you're supposed to do. If someone's like, hey, we need you to write a story. On what? On this new movie that just came out. It's called Am I Racist by Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh. Where have I heard that name before? Oh, he's controversial, for sure. But, I mean, he, at the end of the day, is you know, we can't just only talk about movies made by the people that, you know, align with us politically. We have to also, you know, talk about movies by filmmakers who we might disagree with because, again, this is the marketplace of ideas, and it's really important. So why don't you go out there and do a story on this? Am I Racist? Star Matt Walsh and director Justin Folk. Diversity, equity, and inclusion workshops might not seem like a natural backdrop for a documentary, but using a satirical spin, Matt Walsh and Justin Folk minced the territory for their feature, Am I Racist? Oh, Chico's upset about this. He just ran right in the room. He's like, are you talking about Matt Walsh? I hate that piece of shit. I know, he's a piece of shit. But we got to read about this because it's really scary what is taking place. These are collaborators. Exhibitors are typically reluctant to program documentaries, never mind hot-button ones, but they quickly came around. In the process, the film became the highest-grossing doc since 2018. I think we approached the film in a way that was entertaining and funny, Walsh said during a Variety-hosted panel for the film on December 3rd. I think that we drove a lot of interest into this film. And so, when exhibitors took a chance on us, I think it paid off. And part of that was the fact that we were willing to wade into these waters. We were willing to talk about a subject that's very controversial and do so in a very just, I guess, not expected way. The conversation, which also included Walsh and was moderated by Variety's executive editor in film and Tanya Siegel, was part of the FYC streaming room presented by The Daily Wire. They were skeptical that documentaries can actually affect a real audience to the theater, but we kind of had to prove our case, said Walsh. The $3 million film, which was distributed by The Daily Wire, sees Walsh go undercover in a various disguise, including a waiter at a diner, attended by wealthy white Los Angeles women looking to heal from their racism. The popular conservative podcaster addressed why some of the film's on-camera subjects decided to participate. I think that maybe we had some dollar signs in their eyes and they were willing to overlook things that otherwise they would have considered to be red flags, Walsh said. White fragility author Robin DiAngelo, just one example. Right before the movie came out, she put out a statement addressing her involvement in it and denounced the film and all that sort of stuff. But she claimed that when she sat down for the interview that she could tell that the interviewer was wearing an ill-fitting wig. Her words. Now, I don't think the wig was ill-fitting, just for the record. I think it was a pretty nice wig. But it is interesting that if she did notice that she was like she claims, then, well, why didn't she ask any questions about that? There's been some speculation that Am I Racist team is submitting the film for awards consideration as a troll. On that point, Walsh set the record straight. It's not a troll at all, Walsh added. We're submitting it for award consideration because we happen to believe that it's worthy for consideration. Just because a movie has a high box office in comparison to other movies in the genre, that alone doesn't mean that it deserves to win awards. But I think that alone means that you should at least have a think about it. And that's the whole fucking article by the Variety staff? Shame on you, Variety. I don't know if this is completely intentional. I don't know if no one wanted to do any due diligence. If really the bar is that low for all of you to get trolled or to get fooled, to normalize an extremist like this. This is a man who makes LGBTQ plus kids' lives scary. This is a man, again, who targets hospitals, who targets children's hospitals, who targets fucking schools, teachers, nurses, doctors. He's an extremist of the highest order. Not to mention fucking gross. Like, did none of you have any time of your day to be like, should we look up this Matt Walsh? Well, what's Matt Walsh all about? What's he into? What's he done in the past? What kind of things has he said? Well, I thought I wouldn't have to show it again, but I made a fake cartoon about Matt Walsh. Made up entirely of real quotes by Matt Walsh, just so you can hear some of the things that, again, this white supremacist extremist has said.
From the makers of What is a Woman and the new top 5 box office hit comedy Am I Racist comes a brand new Daily Wire animated series for the entire family. Real, actual things Matt Walsh has said.
Maybe this is more dramatic than what we've heard in before. When no one's actually said it's over for us, we're done. Our race of people, we're singing our swan song right now. We're the last of the Mohicans, the last of the Anglos. It's not that we're just, you know, as the Mexicans come in, we magically meld with them and become like them. It's not like that. It's that we are dying off, just like any other species of animal does. We're dying, and that's what's happening with us. The extinction of the Anglo-Saxon race is just like that.
Are you Hitler?
If you love the Timu Borat comedy stylings of Sweet Daddy Walsh, then you'll love watching the real things he said out loud get brought to life thanks to the magic of animation. And billionaire petroleum investors. There's Matt Walsh giving his thoughts on kids and their dating life.
So to all of a sudden act like this phenomenon of girls getting pregnant at a young age that we consider young, 16 or 17, it's always been that way. Even biologically, and this is me just stating, right now I'm going to start by just stating facts. So fact number 1, it's not a new phenomenon. Fact number 2, in fact, it's a phenomenon that was more common earlier in history, and for, you know, the first 6 to 10,000 years of human existence, it was a normal thing. Fact 3, girls between the ages of like 17 and 24 is when they're technically most fertile.
The fuck? There's Matt Walsh talking about slavery.
In fact, it seems rather clear that Black Americans are doing better here today than they would be had their ancestors generations ago never been brought to these shores. We can prove this point by simply asking which African country anyone asking for reparations would prefer to live in. The answer, of course, is none of them. It also ignores the fact that Africans participated in slavery and the slave trade as much as they were victims of it. Actually, what we can say is that we'd all end up worse. All of us today would be in a worse spot if slavery never existed at all across the entire globe.
And who can forget when Matt Walsh defended notorious pedophiles like Josh Duggar, Cardinal McCarrick, or all the s***ers in the Catholic Church?
So in the 60s, you've got a bunch of homosexuals who start to join the priesthood, and the priesthood becomes a haven for homosexuality. And then around that same time, you've got a bunch of teenage boys who are being by priests. When those accusations started coming out, and then all this other information about Cardinal McCarrick came out, most of the stories that have come out about him revolve around his sexual exploits with seminarians. And seminarians are grown men in their 20s. So it's probably true that he was and sting boys, but we know.
Like, again, I can't believe Variety did this. It's just so incredibly fucked up. To put out an article by the Variety team where they're just like, yeah, we're having a screening of his film. It was a top grossing movie. Finally, a distributor took a chance on him. It was a Daily fucking Wire. You could have, again, done one simple search. You would have found out that it's the actual network that he already works for. It's they made his last movie. They distribute his films. Yes, this is a hate network. They are extremists. I don't know if this is just like a sign of the really terrible things to come, where now this is just the kind of normalization that is happening to a white supremacist like this. A guy who says shit that, like, people at Klan meetings would have been like, oh, whoa, we're supposed to not really say all those things out loud anymore. Like, holy fuck.
Know that he was also involved in a lot of sexual activity with grown men.
After all, even if Matt Walsh is toning down his rhetoric to try and appear more mainstream, we should never forget that he's a white supremacist extremist who's reveled in targeting children's hospitals, doctors, and nurses alongside libs of TikTok that eventually led to mass bomb threats.
Today on the Matt Walsh Show, children's hospitals around the country are butchering, mutilating, and sterilizing their young patients. So according to Boston Children's Hospital, literally every toddler who has ever been born or will ever be born is trans. Now, if it seems like they're casting the widest imaginable net in order to catch the most children they can and put them all on a path to sterilization and butchery before they can even talk, well, that's because that's exactly what these monsters are doing. And they've done it up until this moment without much resistance from the public. But that has to end. We have to stop making it so easy on them. And that's why I'm in the very early stages of trying to organize a national coordinated effort to fight back against this evil. You know, it's really just a matter of where do we begin? Maybe we begin at Boston Children's Hospital.
Boston Children's Hospital says its staff is being threatened and harassed now after far-right activists on social media posted misinformation, claiming they perform gender-affirming hysterectomy procedures on young girls. The hospital says it's not true. They do not perform those procedures for anyone under the age of 18.
The same man who also profited from selling dolls of himself in a diaper directly marketed to children.
Sweet Baby Gang has a special name for you.
They do.
They do.
Sweet Daddy Walsh is what they call him. That's my official name.
Daddy Walsh.
While hosting hate rallies that directly make kids' lives more unsafe. A man with a history of hosting diaper wrestling competitions with literal Nazis. Yeah, Matt Walsh sure is a far-right extremist. No matter how much he tries to apply costumes or masks, some would say it's actually journalistic malpractice not to consider his incredibly documented history of extremism before entertaining a single thing that he says or produces. But not us. Because we're bottom-feeding scumfucks who want to profit off minorities getting attacked and making LGBTQ plus kids' lives scarier. You know, for money. Real, actual things Matt Walsh has said.
I mean, I wish this was a bit, but it's not. Variety just did it. Deadspin just did it. They're doing it. They're normalizing Matt Walsh. They're completely erasing all of his extremism, all of his white supremacy, all of his weird fucking pedophilic statements, all of his fucking Nazi diaper wrestling shit, and suddenly he's just a documentarian making a movie that calls into question, well, I mean, is there a racist industry in the United States in the form of things like DEI and critical race theory? And at the end of the day, isn't that the opposite of what it says it's supposed to be doing? Is that in fact not racist itself? And that's what my documentary was trying to explore. And I'm glad that you, Variety, as well as you, Deadspin, as well as all of these major media outlets are now giving me the chance that I've been waiting for. He tried this with What is a Woman, and it didn't work. Everyone saw through it at that time. Everyone was like, no, you're clearly just a bigot of the highest order. That's what you are. This stuff is hate speech. It's not in any way like something that we're going to platform. You're going to have a very kind of insular, isolated audience that's going to be watching these kind of things. And then, Joe Rogan was like, no, they're not. I'm going to platform it. Matt Taibbi was like, I loved it. It was amazing. It was so funny. It was great. Yeah. By the way, I'm a leftist. Yeah. So leftists love it too, and there you have it. But that was about as far as they could really penetrate into the mainstream. Now, the fact that Variety is doing this, that's really fucking scary. It's not even something I can laugh at. It's something that genuinely is shocking to see take place. How quickly all this stuff can get normalized. How quickly everyone can just suddenly be like, hey, this is just a comedian who did a conservative Borat, and that's where we're at now. Cool.
Thank you so much for watching, everyone. This independent series is made entirely possible thanks to our patrons. It was produced by Anna Loves Riley, Arian McCarthy, Bobby Lasers, Cheryl Alvarez, Comrade Junkie, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Hagbard Celine, Jimmy Sombrero, Multimondi, Omni, Political Papi, Preston Kroll, Quiet 185, Richard Bohem, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Cernicus, Stellar Gwyn, Sebastian Demmel, and Words Greenwood. Not to mention all the other patrons we now see on screen. We couldn't have done this show without you. If you can help support the show, please check out patreon.com/the Serfs to unlock bonus secret episodes as well as get the content before anyone else.